Hi everyone. My name is Agnes and I have anxiety. Let me just do a mic check first. Yeah, my light's on. I checked that due to my anxiety. You know, the likelihood of me not turning it on, it's pretty low, but it happened one time and now I worry about it every time. And I am here to tell you guys about the one thing you should really be trying to resist if you have anxiety. It starts with a story. Last night I was lying in bed and I couldn't sleep because I have a lot going on today and my brain was just like a hamster wheel of just really stressful nonsense going 100 miles an hour. I'm also in the process just now of editing two pretty work heavy videos. So they include a lot of different clips and it's just quite a lot of work and there's music and stuff. So it's time consuming. And the last couple of days I have been mostly just editing these two videos that I keep on coming back to. So I had these videos in my head and I wasn't exactly where I wanted to be with either of them. And I was lying in bed so far away from being able to actually go to sleep. And I thought I was thinking about these videos the entire time, thinking about them, what else needed to be done, what I'd done already. And it was just like tick, 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 the whole time. So uncomfortable. So I was lying in bed and I thought, well, maybe I should just get up. Maybe I should just get up and go and do some work on them. I mean, I'm lying here thinking about them anyway, so maybe I should just go and actually do the thing that I'm worried about. And I am so thankful that I didn't. But it struck me that I think if you're not very educated on your anxiety, that might seem like quite a sensible option. You know, you're worried about this thing's occupying your mind, so just go and deal with it. Then your mind will be empty, right? Right? But it's not. And if you have anxiety, it almost never ever will be if that's your approach. Because if I'd gotten up, even if I had managed to do a couple of the things, it was midnight, even if I had managed to do a couple of things in those videos that I'd wanted to, I could almost guarantee you that if I went to bed, my brain would still be tick, 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 tick with other stuff. It's not like it would have actually helped. And the reason it wouldn't have helped is not because the problem was never ever to do with the videos I had to do. The problem in that instance, I mean, maybe describing it as a problem is overly negative. The concern that should be the focal point is my nervous system. So the reason that I had that hamster wheel effect going on in my head is because at that point I was experiencing anxiety. I mean, I experienced anxiety. I have experienced anxiety almost every single day of my life that I can remember from a very, very, very young age. I've had a couple of brief times when I haven't felt any. Actually, one brief time, I did a thing, and I'll get into it at some point in the future, but it was pretty revolutionary. I live with anxiety most of the time. That was the point in that sentence. And what I have learned, forgive me, I've entirely lost my train of thought. Is that obvious? It's because my anxiety right now is serving me up just a bajillion different thoughts at once. I recently watched, this is the most ADHD sounding conversation. I recently watched Inside Out 2. And if you guys have seen it, in my experience, it is the most accurate portrayal of anxiety ever. The most accurate portrayal of anxiety. Please watch it. It's incredible. And it's incredibly accurate. With all of my many, many, many years of personal and professional experience of anxiety management and just experience of anxiety in general, I could not have put it better myself than that film put it. It was absolutely astonishing how accurate it is. And I think one of the problems that we face when it comes to anxiety is the temptation to try and fix things out with ourselves rather than recognizing the issue is internal. It's our nervous system, and it's because we have anxiety. And when you're able to look at it as what it really is, it's an inside problem, then the solution becomes quite different. Another example that's maybe slightly more relatable than my editing a video example is your front door being locked at nighttime. So I know this is an incredibly common thing, just like with the oven being on or you left your straighteners on, something like that, that you have an idea that maybe you have not locked your door or you've left your oven on, something like that. And you know that if you tapped into the logical, rational part of your brain, you know that you did that thing. You know that you did that thing because you almost always do that thing. And the likelihood of you ever not doing that thing is really, really low. So when you look at the evidence is massively stacked up in the you probably did it category, but your anxiety will tell you repeatedly that you didn't. Your anxiety will not only tell you that you didn't do that thing, but your anxiety will very efficiently, very helpfully run through all of the terrible things that would happen if you didn't do that thing. So locking your door, for example, unless you live in an incredibly unsafe area, you would be so unlucky that the one time that maybe you forget to lock your door, that is the one time that an intruder tries your door handle. So even if we look at the evidence that yes, you probably locked it, but two, even if you didn't lock it, what's the likelihood that there would be a hugely negative consequence? You get into like a lower and lower and lower percentage of the likelihood of something bad actually happening. But when you have anxiety, that's not how it feels. When you are anxious, it feels like, well, I know I didn't do that thing and the consequence will be X, Y, and Z. So then you get out of bed. Oh, in my scenario, I don't know if I said this, but in my scenario, you're in bed thinking about your front door being unlocked. You get out of bed and you go and try it and it's locked. Is anyone connecting to this? Because I know that there are literally thousands and thousands and thousands of people who will have been in this situation. And so what's happened there is that because you have given into the temptation of trying to satisfy that anxious thought by going and actually checking, you are really, really feeding into the idea that your anxiety is in some way useful, in some way taking care of you, and like should be listened to. Almost as if you're saying to your own nervous system, that anxious thought was credible, that threat was credible, and I've taken it seriously. And that is really, it's incredibly unhelpful. And all it does is helps perpetuate this cycle of us acting on very, very anxious thoughts. When you behave like that, your anxious thoughts will become worse, and then there will be more of them, and they will be even harder to avoid, like those anxious thoughts producing certain behaviors. So you will have more and they will be worse and it will be more difficult. So what you need to do is recognizing that these thoughts, they're not coming from any kind of wisdom or intuition or any actual thing outside of yourself that is occurring in the world. It is as simple as it lives inside you, and it is anxiety. And what you need to do is any mindful activity that you are familiar with, any kind of breathing exercise, any kind of listing, counting, soothing, body scan kind of exercise. And if you have anxiety and you know literally no mindfulness exercises, thankfully you can find out about them everywhere. But you really should find out about them, and then you should practice as hard as you possibly can. What my situation last night ended up being, I stayed in bed. I did the countries through the alphabet. I did them so many times. Whenever I got distracted, thinking about editing videos, whenever I got distracted from my list, I went back to the top of the list, back to A, and thought of a different country that begins with A, and a different country that begins with B, and a different country that begins with C. And I really, really like the listing countries exercise, because for me, it's interesting enough that my mind is occupied, but it's not so interesting that it's going to keep you awake. It's not like scrolling on your phone. It's obviously a much more relaxing, less stimulating exercise than that. But it's stimulating enough that I can distract myself from the thought that is unhelpful. So that's the long and the short of it. That's the long and the short of it. Ideally, we would never indulge these behaviors. But when I say ideally, I mean that if you have anxiety and you are used to always indulging those behaviors, then it's important to be very kind to yourself. Just because you learn this information, it doesn't mean you're going to immediately be able to flick a switch and be like, oh, fabulous. I'm not going to go and check my door anymore. I'm not going to go and check my front door or my oven. I'm not going to do that anymore. Or I'm not going to go and tend to this thing that's causing me anxiety. Instead, I'm just going to sit with the anxiety and deal with it in a mindful way. That is the ideal scenario, absolutely. But it takes us a really long time to get there if it's something we've never ever practiced before. So please be kind and gentle with yourself when you're trying this for the first time. But I'm telling you that it is absolutely, absolutely worth trying. Because if we allow our anxiety to go unchecked, it can just cause us so many problems. So many problems. Coming from a woman who's been attempting to manage her anxiety for, I don't know, almost 30 years. Yeah, it's pretty sad, but actually I remember having very anxious thoughts from an incredibly young age. And I've been trying to manage them for a while now. It's going wonderfully. Perfect. As I'm sure you can tell, absolutely perfectly. No notes on the way I manage my anxiety. It's just all mwah, wonderful. Okay, guys, thank you so much for watching to the end of this video. I hope it was helpful. Please tell me your little mindful tips below, or please tell me if you don't have any of these, and then please go and learn about them. I'm going to do a video in the future for sure with more mindfulness techniques, but in the meantime, you can literally find out about them. You can find out about them literally everywhere. Thanks for watching, guys. Please leave a like and subscribe if you aren't already, and I will see you in my next video. Take good care.